I could remember as a child that I used to draw a lot, like cutouts, like maps and everything like that. So building my own world as a child. And also all my teachers kind of told me that I was a little bit of a dreamer, like not focusing properly.
Your hobby, this is your love, this is your life, and that fuels you.
You can get lost in your own world. You have to be a little bit careful because then you end up giving too much into this.
I know as a person who just prone to giving it all like 100% and more, and it's so difficult to take a step back. Sometimes you're just not aware of what you are doing and you're burning like candle from both ends.
You push too hard, you break it, and you break yourself. And that was a life lesson I learned in 2023. And that was a great life lesson because now things seem a little bit more easygoing. I'm not 100% an enemy of AI, but I believe that you're missing the human component completely if you focus too much on AI. But the best opportunity that we have as a creative is get used and learn how to embed AI into your work process.
You set time, right?
Yeah.
So this is the very human element. I think that's what AI is missing, is this immediacy that you can like go there with a prompt and it gives you the answer. And it's not really lived in experience. It's just a snapshot of what you're prompting in the moment.
The beauty of the financial support from family. Like if you're a mother, father, if you're able to support your kids and their dreams, do it.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to be supported from the family completely in every way. Yeah, that's another plus lucky thing. Yeah.
So welcome. Thank you so much for making the time to enjoy, hopefully, the conversation with us today. I want to introduce you. Your artsy name is J.S. Leitgeb. Am I pronounced it correctly?
Yes, yeah, that's fine. That's great.
You're a director, writer, producer, and a creative director of KTC Universe. We are very excited to welcome you today. And I want to ask you, the first time when you were aware that you wanted to create stories and worlds. When was it in your childhood? When it was, clear to you?
Basically, yeah, it basically started maybe as a grown-up, but I could remember as a child that I used to draw a lot, like cutouts, like maps and everything like that. So building my own world as a child. And also all my teachers kind of told me that I was a little bit of a dreamer, like not focusing properly. So I was kind of in my own world sometimes. And then I forgot about that, more or less. And then while I was studying, it suddenly came back. So I remembered that I did these things as a child, and I always had this intuition that I wanted to do something like that. And throughout my studies and directing my very first short, I realized, wow, I'm actually now doing exactly that, what I did as a child back then. So that's where it all came together pretty much, that I would definitely stay on that path.
So were you that child who always like draw? Because I had like some people in my class, for example, they were always like, it doesn't matter the subject, the class, they were always like scribbling something in the corner of the copybook. So you were like that.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah.
And what do you remember? What was the subject? What were you drawing?
Actually, pretty much to the genres I do today, like cutaways, like submarines, like a little bit like the Wes Anderson drawings, where you have all the floors and all the details and all the people running around on all the different floors. I did that with submarines, with tree houses, with spaceships. So I already had this adventurous kind of fantasy element in there. And of course, when you study, you try out different genres, but I ended up completely arriving at adventure, fantasy, sci-fi, and horror content in the end. And that's where I was at home as a child as well. So it felt right because of that. Yeah.
Did you say horror as a child?
Yeah. Well, when you turn 14, of course, or
Okay.
12, you are kind of curious about that horror genre, and you kind of, even though you're not allowed to watch these movies, you kind of slowly ease into it.
Mm.
Watching an 18 plus movie in a
Yeah.
horror genre, even if you're 14,
The
it
big
can scar you for
ones.
life, but that can also be a good thing at somehow.
Oh my God, when you're saying that scarring you for life, I was not allowed to watch it. My parents were watching The Elephant Man.
Mm.
It took me years to get over that.
Are you okay now?
Years. I don't know. That's maybe why I'm so fucked up.
Well,
I was watching.
the problem with Elephant Man is that it's quite realistic, of course, but if you're watching some creature horror, then it's a little bit far away from reality. That helps a little bit.
That's true. But you talk about that it sounded like you kind of like forgot. And so you were studying. What did you study? Did you study anything with film?
Um, I more or less forgot during my school time when I was doing all the math, the history stuff, and all this. And I was so involved in managing getting through school that there was not much time of actually breathing as a teenager. And then when I started to study, I only studied what I had in mind. Like I began studying film and theater and media studies. And suddenly, all the studying felt so easygoing because I was doing what I was supposed to do. Um, and during these studies, I had enough time to come up with ideas and to actually push my creativity in some directions. And during these studies, I also studied at the Academy of Applied Arts a little bit. That's where I got my design background, and also at the Film Academy because I wanted to do more with film. But basically, I finished theater, media, and film studies at the university in Vienna.
Okay. I think it's beautiful the way what you're saying is that when you start doing what you loved or what you're meant to do, all of a sudden you had time to
Yes,
breathe.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
That's something that is gorgeous and really important. And we want to dive into that world because created, you have really created the world. Like it is KTC Universe. You
Yes,
have a publishing house too. And then you did the Secret Box trilogies, like the first project. Am I right? That is
yes, yeah. But basically, I mean, I started out during my studies, I already directed music videos. I worked as a DJ, I played in a punk band. So all these different areas I was able to explore, and a network grew around it of creative people. And that was pretty much the environment that helps a lot if you create adventure fantasy content.
Mhm.
And also, it gave me a background in music because I love to explore music and scores when I'm writing already, also. And basically, the Secret Box trilogy was the first proper fictional package where you could see there are so many things in there. It's not just a short film, it's not just a music video or a commercial. So, it's basically an entertainment package where you've got two short films on Blu-ray. Then you've got your adventure novel as the middle part, which has, of course, all the story parts in it because the two short films are the opener and the ending. And the adventure novel is basically the entire story. And to 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 add up a little bit, I created for every chapter, for all these 35 chapters in the book, I created graphic props so you can actually buy this entire box of stuff
Show us the
in one
box.
container.
Wow.
And
I love it.
you can really go into detail, like when you open up this passport of this secret society, you've got, of course, your ID card and everything in there. So these are the things that I love to do, even though they're pretty much uh, break you financially, and also in terms of workload, it can overwhelm you at some point.
Yeah.
So that's why you really need to invest the time
Yeah.
and not rush through things. Because the moment you rush through things, your creativity is gone, and you really need to be sure to have enough time on your desk to put in the work for stuff like that.
I have a feeling that this is something that you probably wanted as a child, like to have this little thing that you can escape and like go fully immerse yourself. Because I was like that. I always
Yeah,
liked the stories that create the experience.
yeah,
And that especially if you can then go and like this Harry Potter universe, let's say,
yeah,
then you can go and buy those things and they make you closer to the characters and it's just makes you belong to the world that is not real but feels so close to your heart.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, as a child, I didn't really had the wish to escape
Mm.
because I was lucky to have a great childhood. I
Mm.
wasn't an outsider, or I was right in the middle. Not on
Okay.
top, not an outsider, not bullied or anything,
Mm.
but yeah, somehow I was able to develop my own voice throughout the years. And the more you get involved in entertainment or in arts, you learn to channel your voice into the right direction, wherever it needs to go at the very moment when you're facing a project. And this is something that takes years and years and years to find my vibe, my style, the way I want to go, the way I want to work. Took me about 12 to 15 years, I think. Yeah.
Did music help you there? Was it a big
Yes. Yeah.
part?
Yeah. It was a big
Wow.
part, but also studying was actually a big part because while I was studying, I was also already working as a writer director. So,
Mhm.
and you grow together with people from the film industry in Austria, and you realize when you're starting out, you do a lot of projects for free. And so every week you could jump on a project actually and do something. And that's what I did during my studies. And I worked in a lot of different departments before I even began to direct. I worked as a best boy on Film Academy films. I worked as a script continuity, um, even when we were shooting on 35 mil, which is great to even get the opportunity to work with film in these days where everybody shoots digitally or mainly digitally. So that was a great opportunity and that helped me actually to get more secure in my directing when I'm on set because I know what all these departments bring to the project
Mhm.
and I know what they need to do their work properly to be creative on their own. So I'm I invested quite a bit of time to create a communication workflow with my team to inspire them and motivate them instead of putting them under pressure. So this is basically what was the last thing I added to my workflow at the very end, where I said, now I want my team to have the same vibe and energy and playful element that I feel. And that's how I create my projects and that's how I create the materials we work with, basically.
Mm.
Yeah.
Tell us about the film then inside of the trilogy, The Secret Box,
The
because
film, well,
it's
the,
beautiful.
the film is basically it opens up a world, an entire universe, which grew organically. I would say I didn't wake up and say I want to create a universe. I basically started with one idea for a short film, and the short film took so long to produce and to get financed that I continued to write. I wrote
Mm.
about this character and I wrote about the world. And after 1.5 years of trying to finance it, I had created another short film and even a bigger idea and a bigger storyline, which was from 1800 up to the 1980s. So it's a big time scale that you have. And out of that grew that universe where one of the main characters is actually a paperboy
Mhm.
who lives on the streets in the docklands of 1850, and he finds some dodgy people who dig out a secret box out of the ocean. And in the end, they can't manage to open the box, and the boy seems to be the only one who manages to open the box, like solving a puzzle and he becomes part of a secret society because of that. And this secret society doesn't age. So we've got different characters from all kinds of time periods who go on adventure, like a little bit like Indiana Jones. But there's also a little bit of horror in there, like Lovecraftian horror with solving mysteries. So you've got all these genre bits and pieces in there and throw it into the universe and mix it, basically. We've got a little bit of adventure, a little bit of fantasy, a little bit of sci-fi element, and there's always this nostalgic element that I care about. I'm not a big fan in telling contemporary stories. That's not me. I hold it a little bit like Robert Eggers that he said during his tour for Nosferatu. Photographing a mobile phone is just death. And I feel the same because yes, I want to tell stories and I want to face issues from our society that are current, that are happening now, but I'm not interested in discussing these problems in a real world. If you
Okay.
confront your audience with issues in front of their own doorstep, they will close. They will get very careful and they don't even want to think about it. But when you confront people and an audience with an issue in that happens in a faraway world or in a time far away, they feel free to think about it without even realizing that they're facing the same problem. So they gain an objective element and start to think about the issue. And the good thing is you don't seem like a moral teacher to them.
Yeah,
You just
it
present
hits you
them with
differently.
with a story, and that's my approach basically.
Huh, that's a good thought.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, without being preachy, without being, like a teacher of sorts. Yeah. I wanted to ask you, you said that it took a while to finance the project, and I think altogether was 4 years, right, to create this universe, so maybe
Yes.
more.
Yeah.
But you said you kept going. So regardless of the setbacks of, like purposefully trying to find the finance and probably not being successful at that from the beginning, what kept you going? What was behind it?
Mm, basically, what keeps me usually always keeps me going is it's hard. It's really hard to say because the good thing is, I think that I specialized myself exclusively in adventure, fantasy, sci-fi, and horror. The things I love, the things I really I really like, and automatically this motivates me. So I created a surrounding. I surround myself in an environment where I said I live on a very small scale, not big, but that allows me that I only do my projects that I want. I don't need to do commercials. I don't need to do any jobs where I need to think about content that is not me.
Mm-hmm.
So every day I wake up, I basically create, and it doesn't feel like working. Um, and that's one thing why I feel a constant motivation. I just do, no matter how long it takes. But of course, there are some things that really can nearly break you, like a lot of rejection. And usually these rejections don't happen at the beginning. A lot of my projects, they really fly at the beginning and they get some finance, they get even some cast involved, some producers, even broadcasters involved. And then they usually pull out the plug where it hurts the most, close before you're actually finished
Oh.
packaging and close before shooting, they pull out the plug usually. So these are the moments where you really uh, get a lot of pressure, um, and where you need a little bit of time to think about it and sit down and maybe take even a break and then get going again. And usually, what I developed over the years is by every rejection, I opened up a new project to say, okay, I take this rejection and the reason why it was rejected, and I give you a project that doesn't have this issue. So
Okay.
throughout the years, I collected rejection notes and feedback. And out of this
Wow.
feedback, I tried to package different projects that would fulfill the things other people needed. Because when you get rejected by a broadcaster or by a producer, they usually have a reason for it. At
Mm-hmm.
the moment they can communicate that reason to you, that's even help. That's the helpful thing you need.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do much if you just get rejected, but if you ask them why and they can
Mm-hmm.
explain it to you, then you can embed this into your next project or adapt your current project. So that's how I usually try to deal with rejection because it starts communication.
Wow, I love everything you're saying. I'm just like, can I have your life? Why am I saying
Trust
this?
me, you don't want my life.
Why am I saying this? Do you know what I envy in a positive way? Because for me, envy isn't a bit word good, isn't a bad thing. It's a good thing because that means, oh, there's some longing in me that wants something of that, and how can I achieve it? And what you talked about so beautifully is you are working in a field you want to work with. You're telling the stories you want to tell. This is your hobby. This is your love. This is your life. And that fuels you. And to have the courage, I'm telling you, to have the courage to do that and go like, I don't care what the outside thinks. I don't care what other people are saying. I don't care. This is the life I want to live. And I know you personally. You're the most happiest, fun guy ever, you know. You're always just full of life and stories and you know, having that courage just to do that, to live the way you want to live. And also, as you talked about is, and I think that is, so I'm going to take that with me from this
Yeah.
and go like, I have to implement that. Like, what is it that one really wants and live it without apologizing,
Yeah.
without, you know, explaining, but this is what gives me, fuels me, you know, and gives me this beautiful hope and fun in my life.
Yeah.
And the other thing is what I love, and I think that's for all our creatives listening, and hopefully watching, because there's going to be a surprise in not long. We will see something amazing, is that you ask. Rejections are hard and they hit you hard, and it's hard. It's 90% of the business, we say. It's like rejection, but you then ask them why. What was it? I think I would have been, before I would have been like, I'm just going to go in a corner and cry.
Which is fine too. Sometimes you have to let go and let it out. It's
but that you're asking, what is it? So
Yeah.
you can learn and grow from it. And that's something we can all learn from too. I love it. Thank you.
But there's also something that maybe it's not always the rejection thing. Sometimes the issue lies in yourself as well, because that was a life lesson I learned as well, thankfully, because that opened up a few other doors. Because right after the secret box, or in the middle of the secret box, where I constantly created stories and I built the universe, I was working a lot, and a lot of projects even got funded, which was great. And then in 1 year only, I had 5 projects optioned and half financed and ready. So even a big fantasy series for a big streamer. And all of these 5 projects, usually it is in a year. Well, if you have got 4 projects or 5 projects up in the air, one of them most of the time goes. And none of these projects were actually working. In 1 year, all these 5 projects fell through. So I ended up to get a lot of rejection in 1 year. And I thought, what was the reason? And I noticed that it's also the problem was me to some degree, because I got so lost in my world. So what you said before, I want to have your brain and I want to have your life. You can get lost in your own world. You have to be a little bit careful, because then you end up giving too much into this. And I realized, why isn't it working? I'm giving 110% of my life and time into this. And that is the issue. It's not despite I was working 110%, it was because I was working 110%. So what I did is I basically told the entire industry with all the rejections, go F yourself. I'm going to take a break for 2 months and do nothing at all. Which allowed me to review this. And I realized, while I put all this playful energy into my projects, I forgot to be playful myself as a person. So I forgot to be playful in my real life, in my own life. And that affected me, because I noticed I don't have time for DJing anymore. I don't have time to play in a band no more. I don't have time for private things anymore. And I resetted my life. And now I'm on a balance where 80% work and 20% goes all into this private life. And by letting go, you're not that much under pressure. You say, well, if it's a rejection, it's a rejection. It's fine. You don't push anymore that hard. If you push too hard, you break it, and you break yourself. And that was a life lesson I learned in 2023. And that was a great life lesson, because now things seem a little bit more easygoing.
How were you able to do that? Because I know, as a person who
just prone to giving it all like 100% and more. And it's so difficult to take a step back. Sometimes you're just not aware of what you are doing and you're burning like candle from both ends. And then at the moment, it feels like that's the only thing that you can do. And then right now, I was sharing privately with Eva earlier. Now I have a reverse period where I have stretches of time that are really kind of not filled with anything that I have to do. And that in a way scares me because I'm not used to it at all. So for me, it's just a completely new playground to navigate. And I'm trying to rediscover like, you know, this playful childlike attitude towards it to see what's more, what I can explore, how I can kind of develop myself, rediscover myself. But it's so difficult because that's if you are like me, and I feel like you are, if you're like constantly involved into creating something and then it gets kind of pulled away, or even you're stepping aside yourself, it's kind of you're in this world. How do you take a step back? I think that's the question I'm trying to ask.
I think the good thing is it wasn't something like burnout. I could have gone on with motivation and energy. It was basically one of the most important projects got rejected and pushed to a year later, so an entire year. And I said, okay, what do I do now? I could create another project, but do I really want that? Because the reason they're rejecting it goes on and on and on and on. That's a funding problem, basically. But and that forced me into taking a step back because there was suddenly nothing I could do. I had to wait. I was forced into waiting. And that helped me to say maybe it's not a bad thing to wait. And that's where I realized, let's try something for the first time. And so I got lucky basically that I had this thought. It wasn't something that I know how to do. If I would if I would have exactly known how to do it, I maybe would have written
a guide,
a guide and did a TED talk and then
that would be amazing.
But no, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not that brilliant.
I think maybe you were open to it. That's the
maybe
thing.
I was open to it. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
Wow,
Yeah.
do you want to dive into the world, or do you have another question? I'm gonna wait.
No. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Because we're so curious about something you told us before, and that is when you talked about your writing process begins with drawing.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
we know you have something to share with us.
There's also a reason how this came. It wasn't something that I knew all along that I'm doing this. This grew organically, I have to admit, because it grew out of the type of stories or the type of projects I want. And it took me long to find out what these projects were. So it's not only to tell stories that are playful and adventurous, it's also about, I'm not that guy that grabs a camera and does a one-man show project and trying to keep the budget small and reduce the story just that I can do it. I'm the opposite, unfortunately. So I'm a big believer in big crews, like a lot of things that move, not only in the film itself, on the set. A set needs to be big, a lot of moving parts. It's complex. It needs to be complex, and it needs to be hard to achieve that with all the people you surround yourself with, because it translates to the screen. If you put an effort into it with a big crew and a big spectacle, this transforms to the screen and it can be felt by the audience, I believe. And that's where I ended up in fantasy adventure, because everything is larger than life and it's complicated. And out of this complication, I noticed you get lost in the detail. You get completely lost in the detail and you get drawn away from your creativity, because film is not only creative, it's very technical and it can be very analytical. And if you get lost in these technicalities, you get overwhelmed by all these details. And I noticed I need something playful. I need to get back to the playful element. And then I remembered as a child, I used to draw. And I began drawing, and out of this, I realized I need to start with this drawing process as early as possible. And the earliest thing that's possible is with the idea. The moment I write down an idea or start a plot, I start drawing. And the sets and the worlds I draw, they usually complement the script or the story. And out of that, the story changes. So I let the story change by the world I create. And that helps with the drawing process. And this process doesn't stop with the script. It dives into how you communicate with your crew. So I wanted to figure out playful materials or gimmicks that I can give to my crew and my cast so that they can dive into the world. Because what you get at the end of the day, as a team of 100 people, you sync yourself to the same world and vibe this project needs to have. And all the feedback you get as a director, it's one feedback round or not even that, because we're so quick in deciding things all together as a team, because we're one entity. We're one creative entity, and that's what it's all about when you communicate, when you have a vision. And that's what brought me to this process, and I can try and share.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So this is basically I mean, this is a little bit of a more sophisticated cutaway, but I usually start drawing rough sketches and then I hand it over to my art department, to my illustrators, and they refine it and make it more decent. But basically, all these set drawings, they begin on a very early basis when I start creating the world or the characters.
Wow.
And I've got specific materials for every project, individual materials that communicate what do you want to shoot, how is the world, and you can basically start with 2D floor plans here, where you've got your camera angles, and I try to even do this during my writing process already, so I have exact shots that I need, that they need to go in the script, because if they're not in the script, they're not in the film. And that's why I'm very detailed in the writing process, which saves me a lot of time in the pre-production process and in the shooting process, because it's already been done. And that allows you to step out of this analytic box to actually create when you're on set. You're free on set again. You're free to think, you're free to improvise. You have all these things figured out already. And if you get lost, you can always go back to that stuff. But when you're on set, your head is free to actually face decisions that get thrown in front of you anytime. And this is what I'm doing actually, why I'm prepping so much and why I dive into the world, because I've got all these materials and I want my crew to have the same opportunity.
Thank you so much for sharing this. Looking at it, it's so detailed and it's beautiful. Even the words for floor plan, it's designed in a particular thing.
Yes, yeah.
I just love it. I'm a sucker for things like that. You said something. You said that you meticulously plan everything to film to feel more free on set, meaning that then yes, you have all of this, but then on set there are all those creative decisions that you kind of don't stick to the plan. You still feel that there is the energy to explore, and that's what you're going. That's very good. That's very helpful. That's what I found also shooting my short film, the second one, is that the more you plan, somehow the easier it gets while you're filming, because you don't actually even have to look at what you've made exactly. It's already somehow.
And that's also a very important thing, because you've already written it down or you've drawn it or whatever. You put your head into that, and it is in your head because of that. And that is some issue I have today with everything needs to be speed up. Everything needs to happen fast. If you take your time for a year and you do the workload, you save these thoughts in your head somehow, like a backup. And if you do this with AI in a couple of 10 minutes, you're not putting in that word, because it gets out in your head and it's out again. You don't have time to actually leave it in the back of your head and reflect and do all this hard work actually that you put into it, and time. And this time is needed, in my opinion. I'm not 100% an enemy of AI, but I believe that you're missing the human component completely if you focus too much on AI. But the best opportunity that we have as a creative is get used and learn how to use and embed AI into your work process, because they will replace you anyway. But if you're the creative knowing AI, then it's in the hand of the creatives who apply AI, and not in the hand of some corporate guy or woman, whatever. And that's important in my opinion, because like I would say, if AI is to become or has to become a beast of burden, why don't have, yeah, it should be our beast.
Yes, I like it. Let's tame the beast. That's really good. How do you do that? How do you work with it, for example?
Well, if you, for example, when I create my first drawings, my sketches, I throw it through a pipeline, through an AI pipeline, for instance, and I collaborate with an illustrator already, or an art director. If I don't have the time, or if there is money even to bring in an art director at an very early stage when I'm writing, then I'm sharing these thoughts with these people, and we throw it through an AI pipeline, and we have some ideas, and then we start drawing based on these ideas the AI throws out. But the drawing and the workload is still done basically by human hand. And the reason why I think it's so important to that a human hand should create this is it comes with my love for nostalgic craft of film industry in the 20s. I'm a big fan of the film industry in the 20s, because it was such a big machinery, and everything was done by hand. And even the practical effects, when you look at Charlie Chaplin or stunts, they were all done practically with practical effects in camera, and that's what I love about the craft of filmmaking. And that's why I'm a big believer that this transfers to the screen, because it gets a heart. If you look at a CGI shot that's completed to 100%, there is something missing.
Yeah.
And the same thing is missing in AI. If you have some element of human-driven creativity in there, or created by hand, you get the quality of a heart element in there. That's what I believe, and that's what I feel, at least. And that's why I try to do as much as practical or by human hand as possible. Like Guillermo del Toro would do it. That he's also a big believer in these things.
We're talking about the energy. And energy is everything, and we are connected, and we do feel it. It's even if you're just writing an email to someone, and it depends on the energy you send with it.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I'm sure you've all experienced that. I have. That in the days I'm feeling fantastic and I write it with so much love, and just, it's always a positive outcome.
Yeah.
Not even a question.
Yeah.
That's true.
It's interesting that you said, because also the things about in doing things in camera, I think these days people over rely on doing things on post, and then sometimes it actually bites them in the ass, because like they realize that it's not possible. Like not everything can be done in post, even with AI and everything. But also I was trying to teach myself storyboarding, and there is this beautiful book, Shot by Shot. Probably.
Shot by
So
shot,
basically, and they use all those illustrations for back in, when the Hollywood was like back in the 20s and in the early 30s and stuff. And all those hand drawings we've done with either, just paper and pen or like aquarels. Oh my God, they totally belong in the museum. It's a work of art on its own. And it's so interesting that right now we're kind of like, I mean, I can do only the stick figures and not even that.
Yeah.
But thinking how much time, you said time, right?
Yeah.
So this is the very human element, and the one that I guess it can be a curse and can be also a blessing, because when you have too much time, it's difficult to navigate if you're short on time. But then it helps us to like develop, to breathe through the ideas. And I think that's what AI is missing, is this immediacy that you can like go there with a prompt and it gives you the answer. And it's not really lived in experience. It's just a snapshot of what you're prompting in the moment. It cannot collect all the things that you're like going in your mind. And energy and time. I think that's what's very human. That's what we introduce.
It's
And
true.
I think that's also a key word with time, because for me, money is not a value. Time is the overall value we have as people, as humans, because we don't have endless time. And that's actually the current that we have to give. The more time you give, or the more time you invest in decent or specific things, that is a decision you make, not how much money you spend on things.
Wow, can we
Yeah.
go there? I want to pick your brain. We're gonna stop here, right here. This is our time. We're spending time together, and that is gorgeous. Thank you so much for your precious time. Can you go back to that a little bit more? Can we explore that a little bit more? Because I think we as artists, this issue about around money, you
Yeah.
have to be the starving artist. A lot, that's a big one. A big one. There are a lot of artists that are earning a lot of money and they don't talk about it. It's just it's a given thing and it's not an issue and they can live
Yeah.
well off their art. It's something also. But what you're now saying is taking it totally out of the equation in sense of course we need it to survive. We're not,
Yeah. Yeah.
we're not talking about that. But looking at the time and the value of time, that it's way much more worth than money.
Yeah.
How do you live that practically?
Mm. I found myself to really decide what I do and where I go and if I do it and with whom I do it. Um, it even starts with basic things like, do I really need to go to that thing? But it's family. I have friends and I have family, but for me, family and friends are the very same level. So I'm not that kind of, but this is your family, you need to go there. No.
Okay, Valeria, I love you.
Yeah, my family.
Yeah. But of course, I mean, family is a lot, can give a lot of energy as well that friends can't, because it even starts with your parents. If parents don't let you evolve freely as an artist, especially as an artist, and with support, I don't mean only emotional support. I mean really proper financial support sometimes. And that is a luxury that a lot of artists have. And if you don't have that, you get thrown overboard as an artist very easily and very quick. So I was lucky enough to be supported from the family completely in every way. Yeah. That's another plus lucky thing. Yeah.
Well, beautiful that you're telling us that and sharing that, because I think that's something also that's important to talk about is the beauty of the financial support from family.
Yeah.
And like if you're a mother, father, if you're able to support your kids and their dreams, do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah.
It's worth so much more than just sometimes we are aware of.
And
how much. So when you say practically living it is now, how is it now for you?
Now, at the moment, I'm usually working about 3 to 4 projects and juggling them around. And one project always has the main focus, and the others are in the back. And then once the working step, the workload on this project is done, and everything is sent off for feedback, which takes about 2 months or so, usually, I can go to the other project for 2 months. And that's what I mean with juggling around projects, so that you don't get overwhelmed by, oh my God, I have to do 4 projects all at once. You have to find a rhythm, how to say, focus only on this project, then focus only on that project, then right back to the other project. And if you can somehow control this rhythm and not being dependent on your coworkers or broadcasters or co-producers, you kind of have to educate them as I'm only available for this amount of time and then I'm gone. You're not available all the time. You have to kind of educate these people because then they throw constant work at you.
Yeah.
And this goes for the other way around as well. I'm trying to uphold a 5 to 9 rhythm. I'm not contacting my crew or my cast or my coworkers during weekends, which is always a thing for creatives because they have the feeling they need to work constantly and always and need to be available constantly, which is not true because I got lucky in Ireland when I was working with big production companies and broadcasters because my studio got involved in, or the creatives of my studio got involved on Vikings, Game of Thrones, or Penny Dreadful. And all these companies, they're working from Monday to Friday. They're not gonna work on Saturdays or Sundays. The offices will be closed and nobody will answer emails. And this is great, actually, because in Austria we have a big problem with that attitude.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Do you think it's a like also like a cultural thing? Because there are some cultures that are prone to overworking. It's just something that you like drive yourself till you're
Yeah.
that tired. But
In
yeah,
Austria, I don't think it's a cultural thing. In Austria, it's a problem of the film industry itself or the art
okay,
industry itself, because the art industry struggles with turning it into an industry, turning it into an actual industry that creates money. We always are so dependent on getting funding, and we've seen it now with politics. They can take the funding away any day. And it's about time we really need to wake up and start to become independent as the film industry or music industry without relying on funding. We always will need funding, but we need to find ways to gain money into the box office or wherever it comes from. We need to sell these things properly. And Austria is not a big thing when it comes to marketing arts or marketing films. We're too small. We're thinking too small still. We have to start to create Austrian films for the international audience and not Austrian films for the local audience only.
Yes.
We need to open up more. And that's also what drives me a little bit why I'm still in Austria is because we don't have fantasy and adventure here. We don't have these genres, at least, or especially not genres that are targeting the big international markets. We don't have that a lot. We have a little bit of it, but nearly not enough. And these genres can be the answer to finance art house. You need to juggle things around, like finance with commercial projects in an international level, finance the local art house projects, and not politics and not funding systems should do that because they can take it away anytime. And they will take it away sooner or later.
They will. Wow, you just gave us the answer
What?
to solve the issue with the Austrian film industry.
The problem is a
That
lot of people
isn't-
know this, but they don't know how to execute it. That's the
do you
problem.
think
I
it's
think
the education that's missing? Or
No, it's basically the luxury that we had a funding system. And
okay,
people got lazy because of this funding
okay,
system. Because in America, it was so hard to pull off an independent film, to finance it, talking to investors. All this is a lot of legwork that you have to do as a producer. And in Austria, you simply submit your project and the producers get the money if they get
okay. I
get the
see.
okay, and then they do the film. And there is not a lot of risk you're gonna take. You're simply not raising money, you're getting money from the government, from the taxpayers, and you can create your movie with it. And this is a very lazy system because
It takes away like
it
responsibility from you. It's
and
not.
this yeah and this goes if this goes on for 20 years now or more, you raise an industry that is completely dependent on exactly that workflow. And if you take away that money element, everything falls apart. And that's dangerous. We're walking on very thin ice here in Austria.
We are.
Mm.
We are. Is that one of the reasons you moved to Ireland to create there? Or
It was definitely one of the big reasons, and also that my workflow, my detailed workflow, is more leaning towards the American international way of how you approach an adventure movie or fantasy movie. And that's why I moved to Ireland, because there is the international industry and it's English speaking. But also, I always had the idea to bring Austria into this circle or move back to Austria because now I'm back in Austria. And I'm still convinced that Austria can play a part in the international industry if we wake up and if we start to be more open to other genres. This needs to happen, in my opinion. And I'm only want to deliver one small part, like doing my first feature, particular in Austria. I could have done my first feature in Ireland, which would have been easier. but I wanted it to do it with Austria, and I ended up in a circle where I didn't receive funding. Projects got too big for Austria, and now we finally got a project that is part of my universe. So to continue the story of the Secret Box trilogy, and we're shooting in English, and it's through 100% produced and created in Austria with 100% or nearly 100% Austrian crew. So it's basically an Austrian film, but targeting the international genre film market. And that was always an idea I had, I wanted to do. Um, it was a little bit like, okay, you don't want my projects here, now I'm gonna do it anyway, and I'm gonna show you like it is doable, because you get a lot of naysayers who say it's too big, and how does he want to do that? I don't understand that. And that's why you need to do it. Exactly, that's why I need to do it, to say, don't be so negative, try it, or give me the opportunity to do it. And if it fails, then you can say, I told you it didn't work, and I'm happy to hear it if it fails, but it won't.
But it won't. I mean, that's something I would love to talk about. In Ireland, that's where you, if you could tell us, we would like to learn more from you. How was the filming in Ireland? How did it all? Was it an easy breeze? How was it finding the right crew? How did you set up there the money? How did you find the investors? Because was it there funded? Yes or no? Like, how did that all, come to life?
It was a bit of a strategic move, I have to admit, because I knew that I wouldn't have much chances with funding it through the film schemes there. And we built this company around our universe. Like KTC Universe is basically the creative company that grew with this universe, with this fictional universe, and we embedded a creative studio and then the publisher, and suddenly we had a business model depending on a narrative universe, on an IP. And that's where we went to the state funding for business development. So we got funding as a business development scheme from Europe and from Ireland. And throughout that, we could produce our prototype, because it was kind of a prototype for the entire business model. And out of that, we could take the money to finance the Secret Box trilogy. And a big chunk, of course, went into it from my own budget pools. But that's fine. That's okay. If you want to produce something, you taking your own money teaches you that things cost money, and the crew cost money. And that is also something I found in Ireland. People will leave the set by the strike of the 10th shooting hour, and that's okay, and that's fine, and that's good and important. And not to take people for granted that you can keep them on set for 16 hours or more, which is done in Austria, unfortunately. And that's also where I realized that's a more healthy environment, because Ireland is so embedded into the international industry. They make money out of their projects, and they still have their underground indie movies, which are so important and which have an Irish identity. And they manage to do both. Like Denmark, they're also managing to do both. And I want the same for Austria. I want international big projects happening with Austrian co-producers making decisions in these big projects. And then also do art house or social dramas in a small scale level that have an Austrian identity. And that's what I learned in Ireland, actually, that this is possible. And biggest crews in Ireland, the most skilled people who are doing this for 30 years, they are still open if you ask them to do a short with you. And that's what happened on the Secret Box. I had key crew people from Penny Dreadful, from Vikings, from Into the Badlands, and they jumped on board of this short film, which is not really happening in Austria.
No.
People not stepping down from the scale of projects usually, rarely. But in Ireland, they still do that.
Because they're used to that system, right? Because they're aware of that if I do this, I am keeping the art house alive.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So it isn't for them stepping down, I think.
No.
Yeah, that's
it's
what
just
I was
an
also
add-on.
thinking.
It's an add-on to them, and say explore the network. And also what I noticed in Ireland, the key department people, like the big head offs who are doing this for 30 years, the seniors, they're happy to share any knowledge they have. They don't keep these things for themselves. They share it even in a WhatsApp group. Our DP was in a WhatsApp group with Roger Deakins, and he could post in this WhatsApp group a question about how to arrange the dolly, how to arrange this camera setup, or whatever. And he got answers from a global network of senior director of photography people. And this is something that I want for Austria as well. And that means for Austria to open up a little bit also.
No gatekeeping. There's a
Yeah.
lot of it in
Yeah.
the world in general, but I
Yeah.
guess in film industry as well in
Yeah.
particular. Yeah. Yeah, I don't believe in that. I think that knowledge should be, and also I think short films sometimes can be more interesting for people who worked like for years in the film
Yeah.
industry, which big sets can be very rigid. So if you're like have a particular role on set, then this is what you do and you have to stick to it. You kind of is not, you are involved, of course, you're like
Yeah.
part of this creative process, but then your role is very strictly defined. And if you step because of the budget, because of the time constraints, you kind of have to like keep your line of work and not interfere with everything else. Short films, especially if it's like a young director or something, you can like explore so many multiple things while on set. So that's probably also out of the personal curiosity for them to be part of
Yeah.
this fresh blood and creative energy. I want to ask you about your future projects. I don't know how much details you can provide. You shared something with us, but I want to give you opportunity to share
Yeah.
as much as you want or as little as
Yeah.
you
I mean,
can.
there is now, I already mentioned it, the project that I'm doing now will be my first feature film. And throughout the last 3 years, I started 3 first feature film projects. So each of them received funding, but they grew too big in the end to be a first feature film because of the war in Ukraine, of inflation, all these tiny bits and pieces, Trump. All these were reasons why the projects got too big in the end and too hard to package. And now I'm working on my first feature, which is a decent 1.2 million project, funded by Austria, hopefully. And if this happens, this is a good step into the right direction. But also, I've got 3 other feature films in the moment, and 2 of them are also set in my universe, in the Can Society universe. We call it the Can Society universe. So KTC Universe is the company, but it needed a proper name. Every IP or universe needs somehow a proper name. Even Harry Potter is not the Harry Potter universe. It is the Wizarding World now,
Yeah.
with Fantastic Beasts joining in and everything, and growing too big and really big. Um, and we're trying to do the same, but on a small scale, tiny bit, baby steps. Like, so I've got these 2 features also, and I've got a fantasy series which is set in this universe as well. But these are kind of the projects that I will do in the next 3 to 4 or 5 years, I suppose. And I'm always open for new projects, of course, because, like I said before, projects can get delayed, projects can get pushed, and suddenly you find yourself with some free time, half a year, and say, "What do I do now?" So I like to have more projects in the back of my hand, to say, "Let's move in this project now." Yeah.
Okay. Can you please tell us, I mean, I know, but the meaning of KTC?
Yes. When we founded the company, it was founded initially by Paul Butler Lennox and me. Paul Butler Lennox is an Irish actor, voiceover artist, but also kind of an entrepreneur. And he helped it from the very get-go, and it grew actually really big. He has the Film Network Ireland network actually, which is great because it helps people in the industry to start out and to do their first short films. They're doing workshops, they're doing master classes and everything. And luckily, they now get funding from Ireland as well, which is great that they can do this. But he was actually the person who wanted to open up a company. And he came up with the idea of KTC. And it was at the beginning, it was KTC Collective, like Kick the Can Collective. And Kick the Can is an old child's game. So there was already this playful element in there from the get-go. And then he gravitated towards teaching, and I gravitated more towards stick to the adventure fantasy sci-fi genre world. And out of that grew KTC Universe then.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Okay.
We want to ask you one other thing. Maybe you can
Yeah.
go there. We're not sure, but if
Mm.
you're able to, and that is the way you want to shoot your first feature. You talked about the crew and the balance, talking about female and male.
Yes. I mean,
love to hear
the
this.
project is not greenlit, but it's not a secret that we're aiming actually to bring in a good number of female creatives, and not in assistant positions, but in key positions. So by the moment now we have, I think, 67% female of the entire crew.
67.
Yeah, 67%. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Why?
basically we wanted to bring in female people, and also because I'm a writer, director, and designer, so these are already free hats by a male person. So you need to balance that out to open up the circle, to open up the point of view, and you can do this a little bit better with female people instead of just bringing in another male person. And so it needs to be balanced. Every decision is interested if you look at it from different angles. And that's one thing. And the other thing is lucky. I was lucky because I didn't even, it wasn't like, oh, this needs to be a female person and this needs to be a female person. I just looked up what people are out there, and some of them were basically female. And I said, why not bring these people in? And suddenly it grew into more female people than male people. But that's fine. Female people need to be pushed anyway into the industry, and they need to get the opportunities, because what I noticed in Austria also, yes, we have female creatives and we have female DPs, but not a lot of them get to play with the big toys. They're so used to the small toys, but the big toys, like, they're expensive and hard to move. They always end up with the projects where the most budget lies, and the projects with the most budget will be ruled by men. And this needs to change always into the other direction. But yeah,
Into the balance.
it's a hard
Yeah.
topic to discuss, of course. But Austria it's not only Austria, it's a global
It's the whole world.
phenomenon.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not Austria. That's everywhere. And the thing is, it's also, I think the beauty of it is what you're saying is balancing it, because not just, oh, we need, but as you said, in a sense of the point of view, we don't think alike. And that's interesting then. And there's something beautiful that can come out of that.
Yeah.
So I think that is beautiful that you're, doing that and looking into, because you said, as you said yourself, it would then balance out.
Yeah.
And the creative ideas and the workflow and everything, you will feel it's going to be different than on a set with only men.
Yeah.
The same is going to be with only women.
Yeah.
I love having the balance, me
Yeah.
personally. I think
Yeah.
it's amazing having the
100%.
balance. Because of that, it's just, it's a different, we think differently. We do. There's someone that wrote the book about we're from different planets, right?
Yeah.
Something like
Yeah.
that. That's
Of
true.
course.
That is true. So yeah.
I wanted to ask you, in so many years in the industry with your experience, does your definition of success change? Like, what success means to you now? Or maybe it was the same all along, and you just seems like a very...
I think the definition of success, yes, it changes somehow, but one constant is always there for me, which defines success, in my opinion, from my point of view, is not being forced to compromise your initial idea and your initial vision that you have. The longer you can uphold this, and the longer you can uphold this, the better, but that doesn't mean that you are not allowed to change. I mean, your perspective changes as well, in my opinion, but you need to be always true to yourself, like true north, and this true north can shift, of course, but you always should focus on this true north. And of course, compromise is not a bad thing in fairness. Even a curveball is thrown at you from the outside. You need to be able to tackle that curveball. And that is my definition of success. Whatever gets thrown on you, stay true to yourself and do the best you can with the situation, even that if that means stepping back. And this is something I think everyone needs to define for themselves. But that's for me the definition of success, like pulling through and not giving up. Stopping or pausing something is not giving up, but burying something and say, I can't do that. Mentioning the names, I can't do that. I can't do the thing I wanted to do. That is kind of giving up. So
what I find fascinating is that you kind of in flow. So you said, like, I want to make a feature, so I've already developed two concepts. They grew too big. Okay, so I moved to the next one. So it's kind of like compromise, but in a good way.
Yeah.
So there's like all good energy about the whole thing that you do, and you have multiple things, and you're managing to like spread the time to do it all. Wow.
But that's not, I have to say that is something also I learned and I got confident by the industry, because that's also something that we don't really do in Austria that much, or in Germany. Well, maybe in Germany a little bit, but in the States or in Ireland or in UK or even in France, that's the usual thing. When you look at the slate that the successful directors have, or DPs or head offs even, they don't have just 3 projects up in the air. They've got 12.
Yeah.
So, and one of these projects is going to happen. So you need to create this momentum. So when I've got 4 projects up in the air and I open up another project, for me that doesn't feel like too much. I get the feeling is that's how you do it. So
Right.
that confidence helped me a lot, because in Austria I got a lot of feedback that said, you already have so much projects, you can't start another project. Focus on the 3 you have. If you do that, you end up waiting for funding to get through, and you waste a lot of time on waiting that which you could invest into another project. And that's also what I learned from my time in Ireland.
And it changes perspective, because if you have like one project, let's say, that is really near and dear to you, and you kind
Yeah,
of push for it,
yeah,
which is a good thing, you have to kind of like vouch for yourself. But then it's the only thing that you have. So you also accumulate dread around it. So if it's not get made, then what? And that, I think, like blocks you.
yeah,
Because like there is like the epicenter of your creativity that is being forced into that project, and if it's not green lighted, then what? Like there isn't anything else, so you get
yeah,
frustrated, you get burned out, and in this way, that thank you for sharing this. I think it's
yeah,
very helpful in so many ways.
yeah. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, basically.
Exactly. That's what you
Yes.
say with investing too. And also
Yes.
you're doing it the right way, because as you said before, when you were so fixated on it, nothing worked
Yeah,
the whole
yeah,
year.
yeah, yeah,
You're just, but this way you're loosening up and you feel like you're creative, and you're doing, you
yeah,
are taking the steps at the same time you have this flow and can
yeah.
let go. And that's beautiful. I want to go like a little bit back again, because you the beautiful drawings you showed us and how you work with your team and what you give them and hand out. I mean, if you would share with it one more time with us, because why? I think this is also something you provide as a service. Am I right?
Yes, the studio we built around the company, and the studio, the creative studio, we built around this universe. We tried to set up a couple of services that we can provide to the industry without the universe. That's just our own IP, but we also provide these things as a service
Got
for
it.
other
So
creatives.
how would that work, like for me, for example? Let's say I have this idea uh, of a short film or a feature film, whatever. And I haven't done storyboards myself. I don't draw, blah, blah, blah. Would I then come to you? Like, how does it work? How does this
Yeah,
service work?
you can basically come to us as a creative studio, and we can tell you, all you need is an illustrator, actually. We can provide the illustrator, or you might need a little bit more. You need an art director who creates a bigger package. It's all a matter of tailoring an individual package, service package for you. We're not just, this is the service, take it or leave it. We say every project is different, and what of these services do you need, and how do we combine them? So we're trying to combine these services in a way that we say the best way is if you could afford this service to start with writing your story and pull it right up to the promotion and distribution. So the entire process, the more graphic, the more visual it gets, the more tangible it gets for everybody to understand what your idea of your project is, the better it is, which means to pull these services from the start to the very end. You need to pull through with this. But that's also a question of money, always. And that's a big problem because usually the production companies don't have the money. Not a lot of them have it to start it right at the beginning because the project isn't there yet. So it's a risk to take. But if you come to us for a short film or a big project, basically it works better on bigger projects, in my opinion, than on a short film, because short films work always a little bit different from packaging. We can provide those services, of course, as well, to others.
Now I have to ask you, how is it different?
It's different because of the financing. To finance a feature film project is always a little bit easier than a short, in my opinion. And on a short film, you need to make a lot of compromises. A small scale team, you need to scale down, and people have to wear several hats to make it work. And the moment you start doing this, you force yourself into a workflow where our services are more of a blockage, I think. They blow up the project in a proportion that is not healthy always for a short film.
Got it. Got it. That's why.
Because then you lose yourself in thinking bigger, and losing yourself in this process that might not be that healthy for a short film. But for a feature film where it takes 2 years not to lose track of time, this service helps not to get lost.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jared, this has been amazing. Wow. Like, I think I think both of us could pick your brain forever. Well, we know.
No, I'm happy that it was entertaining and enjoyable.
Amazing. And thank you for sharing with us the drawings. And I think it's really something, if you're listening to us or watching, something you should definitely look into with GS Leitgeb and KTC Universe and what he's built there, and all the packaging that he has and his products, and also the film. It's just the trilogy, the Secret Box trilogy it is so much fun, and it's so well done.
Oh, really, thank you. I really like that you're loving it. Yeah,
I love it, and you know that I know it because I've had it in my head. I've been like going through it all, and it feels like, I don't know. And also the actors in it are amazing, and the little boy, oh my god. Yeah,
Zenon Jennings was amazing. I mean, he's got a big career already. He's already done his first feature as a lead, more or less. Yeah. And
how old is he again?
I think he was 9 when we started shooting, and now he's grown up, of course. 5 years, 4 years later.
And when you will see the film, you will realize, I'm sure, like me, he looks a little bit like you.
That's a coincidence, I have to say. I have to admit that's really a coincidence. But yeah, that's true. Yeah, with the paperboy hats and all this.
Yes, he does. Thank you so much. This has been
amazing. No, thank you for having me. Really, yeah.
And we will put all the links in the show notes to your world, to the products, so that, to our beautiful listeners. And
sure, go exploring, Go exploring and go mad.
And go mad. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, guys.